Okay, well, we might make a start. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've been enjoying this year's fantastic Cyber Week. Thank you to AusCyber for putting it on and for welcoming us to partake. My name is Anna Stuparu and I'm the External Stakeholder Manager for the Cyber Ready Program at Questacon. On the line, we also have Stephen Che, who is our Senior Manager for the program and may jump in for questions at the end if needed. I am now delighted to introduce you to Questacon's Deputy Director and Senior and General Manager of Science and Learning, Dr Bobby Cerini, who will be taking you through an introduction to our program today. As the moderator for this session, I will facilitate the live questions at the end, and please make use of the Q&A function in the webinar in the meantime. We will try to wrap up the presentation part in about 35 minutes and then hear from you. So Bobby, over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna, and it's great to see you all here. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that now. So welcome everybody, and first, as we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet. And I know that we are coming together today from so many different countries and traditional lands, not just across Australia, but potentially around the world. And I acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the lands from which we're meeting and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I'm joining you today from Melbourne, where the traditional custodians here are the Bunurong, Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, Eastern Kulin Nation, but I'm usually based at Questacon's facilities in Canberra, which stand on the traditional lands of the Ngunnawal people. As you can read here, Questacon acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the traditional custodians and the first scientists, makers and innovators of this land, and we acknowledge their continuing connection to country. Questacon works in many different parts of Australia in the course of our work, and it's a privilege to be present there and in many cases to work alongside Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. As we go about building new programs, including the one we'll be talking about today, the Questacon Cyber Ready Program, we will aim to keep considerations of diversity and inclusion at the heart of our design and delivery process. So I want to talk to you today, before I tell you a little bit about the details of the program, I want to share a little bit about the national context for how this work has come about. And in this national context, inclusion for all is really vital. As I know we're all feeling at the moment, it's a time of incredible change. It's also accelerating change. As the pandemic has shown us all, we need as many people as possible to develop the skills, the capabilities, the knowledge and the attributes that help us to be resilient and that let us do more than just survive, but to thrive through times of change. And if we're going to get through the big challenges together, we really need everybody to be able to participate in full. We can all see what the kind of challenges we're facing today look like. You know, apart from major societal disruptors like the pandemic, there's natural hazards and geopolitical instability to deal with. We're seeing climate change impacting in very significant ways, and the transformation of entire industries in response to this and many other pressures. Once you overlay the explosion of digital technologies and AI on top, it adds up to living in a very demanding time, and people today need really good skills to navigate successfully through all this and to be able to access rewarding jobs. For those of us who might be mid-career, it probably means reskilling in a variety of ways. But for young people who have not yet entered the workforce, like the child in this picture, there is so much uncertainty and so much that is resting on their shoulders. The jobs that they'll be doing in 5, 10 or 15 years may not even exist yet. And I just want to acknowledge that this is a graphic from the Department of Home Affairs Industry Advisory Panel report on Australia's 2020 cybersecurity strategy. And again, in terms of that national context, you'll recall the release of the cybersecurity strategy last year, and we know it's intended to benefit everybody. Amongst other things, government has said that families will have increased access to reliable cybersecurity advice and assistance, and there'll be many more initiatives to grow a skilled cyber workforce. There is additional imperative to this work. We all know that cybersecurity threats are increasing. I'm sure most of you are aware of the recent Australian Cybersecurity Centre report that's just told us there's been a 60% increase in, just one example, ransomware attacks against Australian entities in the past year alone. So we know that threat profile is increasing. The strategy also tells us that government and industry partnerships need to be strengthened and that Australia as a whole needs more trusted and skilled cybersecurity professionals. We know there's economic opportunities for Australia if we get our posture, our strategies and our workforce right. So Questacon Cyber Ready Program is one element in the strategy, and it was listed under the $50 million Cyber Security National Workforce Growth Program. This seeks to grow cybersecurity skills at all stages of education, including primary, secondary and tertiary levels. It responds to the fact that cybersecurity is fast evolving and that a strong workforce of skilled cybersecurity professionals will be a key enabler of the digital economy and our security. We are one of 4 elements that were included in the program, which include the $26.5 million Skills Partnership Innovation Fund. And I'm sure many of you are aware of that fund and have been interested in how that's going to create new opportunities for business and academia to partner together. The ACSC was allocated an additional $6.3 million to grow its education, skills, training and mentoring coaching programs, including specialised programs for women. There was $2.5 million for enhanced data collection on the cybersecurity skills shortage. And for Questacon, there was a $14.9 million allocation, which enables us to design challenges and teach training to prepare primary, secondary and tertiary students for a career in cybersecurity. For us, the future and our program starts here though, with very young people and the adults who support them. And I want to talk just briefly about the workforce of the future. You might have seen the recent 2021 ICS Squared Cybersecurity Workforce Study. It's just been released and it shows a few interesting trends. So year on year, we know there's some improvements in both the number of cybersecurity professionals that are available to industry. And we also know that there are some improvements in the size of the gap between how many people we currently have and how many we still need. It finds that the global cybersecurity workforce needs to grow 65% to give us adequate defence of critical assets. And the current assessment for Australia is that we have a gap in the workforce of about 25,000 people at the moment. We don't know whether that gap is going to widen or shrink in the next decade, but we're certainly hopeful that we can help contribute to shrinking that gap. What's interesting is that the report also finds generational differences, and this sort of speaks to Questacon's approach when it comes to designing a new program. Getting a cybersecurity start outside of IT pathways is now much more common for younger professionals. And when you look at Gen Z and millennials, what they've found is pathways into cybersecurity are much more diverse than they were for the older generations. So currently only about 38% of those generations start in IT compared to more than 50% for Gen X and 55% for the boomers. We know that millennials have higher rates of entry through education and self-learning. It might indicate that cybersecurity is becoming better understood as a career opportunity for young workers and students, but it also signals that we need to put a lot of effort into understanding that we're ensuring essentially what's a very broad and increasingly nuanced profession is not just relying on IT as a predominant pathway in. And this is a sort of a significant thing for Questacon. I'll tell you why in a minute. What we see, if we think these trends are going to continue, then children like the one you can see now on the screen, already in primary school, these are generation alphas. These are the kids that are born between 2010 and 2025. And we expect if those trends continue, these people will be even less likely to follow an IT pathway. Now, what's fascinating is that this generation is already more than 1 in 7 residents of Australia. Within 4 years, this generation of kids will outnumber the baby boomers, and many of them will live to see the 22nd century. Globally, once they've all been born, they will number almost 2 billion people, and this will be the biggest human generation that the world has ever seen. This generation commenced in the year the iPad was released. And those who are sort of coming to the end of primary school now, you can think of them as screen agers, digital natives. Many of them, their entire upbringing has been immersed in visual, gamified, digitized, and highly social forms of learning. Questacon is working with this generation now, and we expect still to be working with them as they go on to become screen agers, young adults, parents, grandparents, etc., over the coming decades. And I wanted to also preface the program itself with a little bit more information about what Questacon is. Not all of you will necessarily be familiar with what we do. So that was a broad background to the context, but a little bit more about how Questacon operates and where we fit in for those who are not too sure. If you're not particularly familiar with us, our value proposition is quite multifaceted. Many people know us as this, a national cultural institution, and you can see us here. We're positioned in the heart of the National Parliamentary Triangle in Canberra, in the ACT in Australia. But we're a little bit different as a national cultural institution. We're a specialised division of government, so we're part of the Department of Innovation, Science, Energy and Resources, although we behave a little bit differently to those other divisions. We operate also very similarly to a not-for-profit business in that we actually raise around 50% of all of our operating costs every year. We have in the national capital, we have around 500,000 people visiting us every year. Of course, the pandemic has done interesting things to those visitation numbers, but usually around 150,000 school students would come to us. And during the year, we would reach out to many hundreds of thousands more. So as I said, we're part of the department. We're accountable to the department's executive board and to the government of the day. And we're guided by a ministerially appointed advisory council. And we do work with a number of different partners for fundraising, including corporate and philanthropic partners. Something we also do is really play a key role in developing engaging, interactive experiences, often in collaboration with others. And our key role is often as a translator of expert science, engineering, technology and innovation content into a wide range of different types of experiences, exhibitions, programs like the one we'll be talking about shortly, and other types of activity. The development of those experiences sees us work with a huge array of different partner organisations in all states and territories and often internationally as well. And so a number of those initiatives will be aligned with government policy as the Cyber Ready program is, but they'll also be aligned to our own content and delivery strategies with various partner organisations who might wish to work with us on specific areas of subject matter. I'm just showing you this image here because it's an example of how we work. Recently, Questacon partnered with the Australian Space Agency to develop the new Australian Space Discovery Centre in Adelaide. The content for that exhibition, and you can see here Prime Minister Scott Morrison at the opening of that event, and behind him Enrico Palomo, the head of the agency. That work involved collaborating with around 200 different knowledge partners from right across the Australian and international space industry. And in addition to working with the agency itself and with other organisations. That would be pretty typical for us, perhaps not always up to 200 per project, but we have a lot of in-house expertise, but we supplement that with drawing on the resources of other organisations and really doing an in-depth research process to inform the production and creation of new experiences. Typically, the kind of sources we're used to working with would include universities, publicly funded research agencies, centres of excellence, industry organisations, business organisations, and government agencies. We also work with a number of education and curriculum specialists. So, for example, the Australian Science Teachers Association would be a common one in the education space, and organisations like the Australian Academy of Science or ATSI. So that's just a quick snapshot of some of those background partnership dimensions, which is quite helpful to understand how we're planning to work in the development of the new Questacon Cyber Ready program. Our work extends nationally, and so as an institution, it takes us all across Australia. So we'd be designing and delivering in an average year, dozens of new experiences experiences that have the potential to reach out. We've sort of certainly seen, as everybody has with the pandemic, a huge growth in our online activities, and that's been quite an exciting opportunity. In fact, the pilot programs for Cyber Ready have really been born at a time when the original concept for face-to-face delivery out across the country has been supplemented now with a parallel digital delivery from the outset. So there's been some unexpected opportunities that have come out of the constraints of the pandemic too. We're working in all states and territories. Sometimes they're our programs that we've developed and are touring, but in many cases, they're programs that we're doing alongside other organisations that pre-exist in that STEM ecosystem. And we think of it as an ecosystem because over 35 years of working in remote and regional Australia, right around the country, tells us that there's a huge amount of shared vision, shared problem solving, and shared capacity if we can leverage it to work towards common goals. It might include local business innovation incubators, it might include the Regional Development Australia Network, it might include science centres and museums, it certainly includes schools and universities. So there's a very large array of organisations that work out there in the ecosystem, and we expect and we know that that's the case also with the cybersecurity ecosystem. There are lots of people trying to solve similar problems. So in our case, when we're looking at, can we develop stronger skills? Can we develop particular capabilities and resilience? We know that many other organisations are trying to solve this problem in exactly the same time. So there's a lot of benefit to be looking at how we can work together to achieve these shared outcomes and ideas of improving that. The focus of our programs is really on engaging key audiences for maximum long-term impact. We do, as I said earlier, have a focus on inclusivity in reaching underserved communities. And we know that across Australia, regional and remote communities are generally very poorly served with high quality STEM learning, particularly outside the formal school environment. And that teachers working in those environments also really struggle to gain access to professional learning resources. And as we start to roll out the Questacon Cyber Ready program, we'll be following our strategy, which has got really two key dimensions. One is to create inspiration, engagement, wonder, curiosity, and to spark interest in the next steps and the ideas behind cybersecurity. And the other one is to build place-based relationships in a few priority areas for us are the Northern Territory, particularly Darwin, Tasmania, and also the sort of Queensland central north areas, where we know there's not only particular need in those communities, but we also know there's particular momentum, and the ecosystems there are ready to step up together and collaborate on shared outcomes. So to give you some specific insight, this is a shot of one of our travelling teams, the Questacon Science Circus. In this case, I think they're out beyond Darwin. Obviously, in this case, they're teaching and engaging with young people about the physics of sound. So this bucket is amplifying sound waves, and you can see the fascination on the face of those young people there. Questacon aims to be an inspirer of future action and a builder of human capital and a trainer of emerging talent. So we're used to working with tertiary students in this space of developing STEM graduates into great communicators, into people who have got an understanding of that diversity and how to work in an inclusive way. The opportunities are not evenly distributed across Australia, as I said. And in general, the trends we have seen through our experience is there's many areas of high socioeconomic advantage where when we take a program like this out, which pops up with exhibits and shows, etc., is that it attracts the whole community because there is such hunger and there is such a lack of opportunity to otherwise have visiting programs come. Other areas where we see a real need to invest our effort and to think hard about how to shape our programs in response are in culturally and linguistically diverse people. So that might include our migrant communities, but also the very diverse Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander communities across Australia, and women and girls who, excuse me, women and girls whom I know we're all very conscious of are massively underrepresented in cybersecurity and still very underrepresented in most areas of STEM. We're trying over time to reduce that opportunity gap, and we're really trying to look at the broad context for people that we're working with, recognising it is not just about individuals, but it's about the social and family and learning context in which they work. So, children go to schools where they're influenced by their friends, their teachers, and they go home to families with their parents also being highly influential. And schools themselves, particularly in regional areas, although I think it's generally true throughout Australia, play such a pivotal role in fostering a student's educational attainment and lifelong learning. And, you know, the kind of quality of teaching you get can really make or break how you see yourself and where you can imagine yourself being. And a great teacher has got such power to make a positive impact and support the journey for dozens and dozens, or if not hundreds of kids in any one year. So this is a shot of one of our programs. It's popped up in a large community venue. And the point here is that we're really going to where people are. We don't expect everyone to be able to come into Canberra. We don't expect everybody even to be able to afford to come to a museum. Places can be expensive, destinations can be difficult to get to. So the more we can take experiences out face to face, as valuable as digital engagement is, we also know there's a huge opportunity gap. The digital divide has really become very obvious and very pronounced throughout the course of the pandemic. There's still a lot of digital disadvantage. So we need to even up the playing field a bit and provide people with great face-to-face experiences, which are really, we've found, what helps to create a strong personal connection, a strong sense of belonging, and it really helps to start people thinking about their own place and their own identity. One other thing to note here is that Questacon is able to carry out this work because we've been doing it for a long time, for over 35 years. And the families that we work with, the schools that we work with, tell us that they know our brand, they trust our brand, and that requires a great duty of care on us. We're very diligent around the quality of the products that we make, their safety, and that's both in terms of social safety and cultural safety and child safety, their value, and as far as possible, we'll make those free or extremely low cost for people to access, that they are accessible, and that the behaviours of our people as they shepherd these programs out across the country are consistent with a quality learning mentality and a deep sense of expertise and knowledge in areas like science, communication, engagement, education, etc. Finally, just to give you, finishing off that background on Questacon, another aspect of our work is in really developing future skills. And this is a snapshot of some students taking part in one of our innovation programs, which is focused on really strongly helping adolescents build skills and confidence around technology. And we know that STEM and STEM skills don't provide everything that future workers need to thrive in a changing labour market. But we do also know that these kind of approaches are really important to provide some of the important skills for the future. And a key element here for us is that we're not just focusing on technical skills, but on the non-technical skills of things like curiosity, problem solving, critical thinking, design thinking. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the context of Cyber Ready too. We're looking at both fundamental STEM understanding and knowledge, but also on these associated attributes. And one of the critical features is building confidence among young people and teachers in their skills. So teachers are often unconfident with STEM and cybersecurity material. The young people and parents are also often unconfident with it. So we're really looking at a design that lets us build in these non-technical aspects, and particularly how people see themselves. We'll move on to that in a second. And so we'll be focusing on those, and there's really good reasons for that. I want to share with you some of the stats again from the 2021 ISC Squared Cybersecurity Workforce Study. This also found really clearly that cybersecurity professionals today need a significant range of non-technical skills and attributes. And I'm sure if there are employers amongst us watching this presentation, this will resonate with you. Things like problem-solving ability, strong communication skills, curiosity and eagerness to learn. These are what industry has said in that study are needed. And incidentally, these are exactly the kind of areas that Questacon has been focusing on very strongly for the last decade or so. They're equally important to things like cybersecurity certification and work experience. And we're hoping that by really strongly focusing on these dimensions as well in our programs, that we'll be able to expand the talent pool and the diversity that gets interested in cybersecurity careers. So moving on to our programs, the Questacon initiatives that were announced by government include two elements. One is engineering is elementary. Some of you may be familiar with this, but in brief, it's a program we've been running for a few years now. It develops teachers' ability to teach engineering concepts in the classroom. I'd like to acknowledge at this point that the supporting partnership we have with Defence over the last couple of years has been really instrumental in enriching this program. It's enabled the program to reach almost 1,000 teachers since we launched it at the beginning of last year. It seems extraordinary. It's only not even 2 years ago, but in that time we've been able to reach over 850 students, and by June next year we will have met over 1,000 teachers. And this really helps teachers to integrate engineering concepts and ideas and systems thinking right across their teaching practice. Engineering, like other areas, does not have its own specific area of the curriculum, but it does touch on many different areas. The other element that's part of our package here is the Cyber Ready Program, and we're really looking here about preparation for careers in cybersecurity, and also particularly bridging existing gaps that we can see in the current cybersecurity ecosystem. Ultimately, as I said, we're aiming to increase diversity in the workforce and increase access for young people and teachers to help them build up those non-technical skills. And we'll be aiming to make our programs available to a wide range of different people, of young people. We'll be working hard to find ways to boost the participation of girls and the representation of girls and women, and including options and aspects to engage Indigenous and neurodiverse young people in these experiences, recognising that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach to trying to develop very personalised experiences, and for young people to develop a view of themselves. It really helps if we can focus on them at individual level and understand the different social and learning factors that might be impacting on them. We also want to improve partnerships with industry and between key players in cyber education. We see that as being really important, and today's briefing for us has been about trying to introduce ourselves to you, and hopefully you will get in touch with us later on. What we would really like to do is complement rather than compete with existing cyber education initiatives. We see very much the collective need to equip Australian students to help them see themselves becoming part of the future generation. And so we'll be looking at the inquiry-based learning experiences that help extend some of those skills. And we know that that's a useful focus, and we know that there's a useful gap for us to occupy because of some of the early exploratory work that's been done by Questacon's Cyber Ready team. And I also acknowledge at this time the work the team has done. They're behind the scenes here, but really today is just the culmination of many, many months of extremely hard work and intellectual and organisational engagement. So to talk about how we've started the journey in designing the programs, there's been a few key steps that have been quite important. The most significant first step we took was a background research and discovery process, which has helped us to identify the right starting point for this program. That involved an environmental scan. So in that process, we interviewed many dozens of organisations. We conducted desktop research. We looked into the literature, both grey and published. And what we found from that environmental scan, which concluded in around February this year, is that there's about 137 pre-existing cybersecurity education initiatives in Australia, or at least those were the ones that we could find as a result of that process. That was helpful in that it told us a little bit about the shape of the existing ecosystem, and it helped us to identify that there were certain areas where more effort is recommended, and that included a starting focus on younger people. So in our case, we've chosen the 8 to 13-year-old age bracket as an important area of focus because we can see from that environmental scan that there are fewer initiatives supporting that age group at the moment. Teachers and other educators were really important. We did not see a significant alignment of programs for them. There are some. And what we saw as well is families and those in remote and regional areas, particularly in remote and regional areas, are vastly less likely to have access to cybersecurity education experiences. I suppose none of that was exactly surprising to us because this is what we would observe as we travel through the country. But it's really important to have that evidence from the discussions that we've had and the research that we've done. Our intention is to try and conduct similar scans annually, ensuring that we're up to date as the cyber security ecosystem in Australia changes and evolves. We think the Partnerships Fund is really going to inject a lot of energy, momentum and new initiatives into this space. We're very keen to keep up to date with what others are doing and what's happening, because that will help us to keep refining the focus for the organisation. And I just wanted to also acknowledge at this point, I know that many of you on this meeting might have contributed to that background research piece and the discovery process, and I thank you very much for your insights. They've really helped us get to this important point today. So I'll just pause there and we'll move on now to share some information about the program objectives. And this diagram just broadly gives you a sense of the 4 key streams of activity that are in the program. The broad overarching objective is to inspire and prepare young Australians for a career in cybersecurity and to engage them with the opportunities of the cyber world. The four streams of activity include 2 areas of core focus, which is for teachers or educators and students. We'll be delivering those nationally through free and easily accessible programs, both travelling and digital. There will be a stream of supporting resources for broader audiences, particularly for families. And there'll be opportunities built into the program as it rolls out for collaboration and networking with industry stakeholders like all of us today, with a particular focus, as I suggested earlier, on tackling shared problems and also identifying and perhaps working out ways to get through the barriers to engagement and participation in cybersecurity. At the moment, development of all of these elements is well underway, and what you can expect to see over the next 12 months from Questacon is these programs starting to roll out into schools in several states. There'll be events for teachers and workshops, there'll be stakeholder meetings and so on. In terms of contextual fit, before I go into the details of some of those streams, I just want to share that for us, the context is about being different but complementary to existing initiatives. And we often get asked about how the concept of cyber readiness is different to other associated domains like cyber safety and digital literacy and coding. There is a degree of overlap and linkage with all of those areas, but our cyber readiness sits strongly in an adjacent and complementary space. We're hoping that the program will help to inspire, engage interest, making them, young people's interest, making them much more open to trying out some of these other areas. Essentially, this is about increasing student disposition and open-mindedness to potential cybersecurity futures. And so we're starting in this preparatory space with this sense of readiness. There's a number of existing initiatives that occupy the complementary spaces. They include, in the cyber safety area, programs that deal with online safety for a broad public, areas like cyberbullying, avoiding scams, general cyber safety awareness. And, as the Office of the E-Safety Commissioner says, it's really about empowering all Australians to have safer and more positive experiences online. In the coding and technical security area, though, we're seeing a variety of programs, for example, for students or for teachers that help them build hard skills like the power to code and to gain a solid computer science understanding. And those are really, really important domains. But with cyber readiness, we're also positioning cybersecurity skills as life skills. You don't have to go into a career in cybersecurity to find them useful, but if you have them, it will help you to go into a cybersecurity career. And we're looking here at the domains of not just, as I mentioned, the critical thinking and teamwork and problem solving, but relating those non-traditional, non-technical aspects rather to important areas like encryption, cyber security vulnerabilities, cyber ethics and networking. The ethics is an interesting dimension. It's an important one, we think, because at their heart, our programs are designed to be very human-centered. They're designed to feel like spaces where anyone belongs. You don't have to be wearing a hoodie to participate in these programs. In fact, you can be if you want, but actually come as you are. Anyone is welcome. And what we want to do is really keep keep people's open-mindedness as fluid and as enjoyable as possible, to help get them to invest a little bit in considering whether these pathways might be for people like them. And so when it comes to people like them, we are looking to, in the first stream of activities for students, they're going to be a key focus for in-school activities and also cyber design challenges, both in school and online. One of the key reasons is for our younger demographic is we actually know from our own research and experience and from the literature that there are so many barriers and concerns and influences that play on children, and they affect the self-perception and the future choices of young learners, even at a very young age. So for children and young people, certain factors are highly influential in how they see themselves. And they can include things like the social stereotypes, beliefs about their own intelligence and their own ability, the role models that they have, and the influence of family and friends, as well as the attitude and skills of teachers. All of those factors are present from a very young age. And once a person's perspective of themselves, particularly a perspective on their limitations, forms, ideas about, those ideas get set quite early, and often the ideas about what you are and aren't capable of, or what you should or shouldn't be interested in, those ideas can persist across many years. We've been talking with the National Careers Institute at the Department of Education, Skills and Employment about some of the research they're undertaking into this kind of areas. They're looking at research into Australians' career-related moments of choice and what influences those choices right through from primary school age to mid-career and late career. So they're really looking at a whole of life understanding of what those influences are. And what they're finding is consistent with what I've said, that research indicates that children begin forming career perceptions at primary school age, including the formation of industry and occupation stereotypes. The National Careers Institute will be using that research to help Australians make more informed career decisions at all stages of life, they hope. And of course, we want children to learn in school, at home, with their family and parents about those broad range of potential possibilities, and to help the whole family and the whole school support a sense of possibility and potential for all young people that are not limited from an early age by stereotypes. Now, that is a huge task. We don't imagine we're going to be 100% successful in that, but if we can shift that mindset just a little through the kind of positioning we can build up for students and for teachers, we'll be pleased with that. When we were developing the program, we looked at a model that's come initially from the Arts Council in the UK, which is really, when we were thinking about what we want to achieve, we were thinking about the learning outcomes we want to see students have, and that then informs how we design our evaluation framework. But in brief, these sort of different domains that you can see here, there were specific ways of thinking about themselves that we hoped young people in our programs would start to develop as a result of participating. And I just wanted to share a couple with you. So in the knowledge and understanding space, these kind of ideas of knowing that there are systems and processes to help protect us from threats, and that there is awareness of the privacy and security vulnerabilities that are there. The sense of being empowered when we're looking at attitudes and values, being empowered to participate and contribute, to see a place for yourself in the cyber security industry. In terms of skills, to be able to solve problems, to think critically and creatively, to work collaboratively in teams. And when it comes to behaviour and progression, to feel resilient and approach challenges with a confident and positive mindset. And also to see that solving difficult problems of the sort you will have to if you choose to move into a cybersecurity career, that those processes are fun and enjoyable. And finally, in terms of the areas of enjoyment, inspiration and creativity, these are areas that some of you might know Questacon has been very well known for being active in over the years, being inspired, being engaged to learn more, and using creativity and innovation as critical skills, essential skills in a changing world. So as I mentioned, so those kind of self-perceptions that we think are going to be really important and useful for us to track for students participating in the program. For us, a development process always, as I said, tries to place the end user, the participant, at the heart of it. This is an adapted model from our traditional innovation cycle. Many of you will recognise that. That traditionally that innovation cycle is about, thinking about the problem you're trying to solve, making a guess about how you might solve it, trying out some solutions with prototyping and other models, and then refining it. And at the heart of this, we are placing the desire to build empathy and a humanitarian, humane dimension to this. Again, partly so that people can see that cybersecurity careers are people careers, they're careers that help society. And we know that that is a way that we can engage a more diverse group of people to participate in that, seeing cybersecurity as one way to help solve these big challenges that we're facing as a society. We know there is virtually no industry that's untouched by the need for these skills and the opportunity to improve. And here's just a snapshot of some students at one of our pilot workshops that was held recently at our Deakin facility. They're testing out some of the cyber design challenge workshops that we're designing, and we're underway with building a digital version of this using the Minecraft education platform. We're pretty excited about that. We're hoping that'll be released by the middle of next year. Now, just a few brief words more about teachers to give you an idea of what we're planning there. This is a shot of some teachers participating in, again, another pilot workshop at our Deakin facility. And we've really got a strong focus in this stream of building teacher confidence. There's two substreams here. One focus on teachers who've got no STEM or digital technologies background to speak of, and generally they lack confidence in these fields. And that would be the case, we think, from a large percentage of primary school teachers, for example, many of whom have got no STEM or technical background in their teacher training. The other stream is for teachers with existing skills in these fields, who we know will benefit from extending them to deliver more advanced application of cyber relevant activities. And that might be by being exposed to people who are at the leading edge of cyber research or the leading edge of applications in business and industry. And that then inspires the teacher to think about the real world applications and how that might fit in for the students in their classroom. The general domains there, again, as for students, this is a lot of work to do with increasing confidence and changing their attitudes about what's possible for themselves and their students, upskilling them in systems design and computational thinking, supporting them to embed cyber across the curriculum. Like engineering, cybersecurity crosses into both certain areas of the curriculum and broadly that can be applied across many fields. We want them to understand the diversity of cyber careers and how to create high quality learning experiences themselves on these themes. And to do that, we're helping to unpack the curriculum and expanding on it in the cyber security context. And we'll be working with teachers in primary and secondary school who would like to gain skills and confidence and ideas. We'll be aiming to engage around 500 teachers nationally this year in the pilots, and we'll be looking closely. We've started those programs already, and we'll be seeing how they go. The integration in the curriculum for those who are coming from an education background really sit in two dimensions. One is in the general capabilities on the left. This is looking at characteristics like being a successful learner, being confident and creative, and being an active and informed citizen. This cuts across all future areas of work, to be to have personal and social capabilities, to have ICT capability, to have numeracy and literacy, and to be able to think creatively and clearly. The other dimension is much more linked into the technology side, so the digital technologies curriculum, which has got a stronger focus on creating solutions, on design thinking, computational thinking, project management, and imagining preferred futures that wrap around digital technology. So between these two things, there's really good range for teachers to apply the Cyber Ready program in their class, whether they're teaching the specific area of the curriculum, such as digital technologies, or whether they're trying to focus on general capabilities. They can do both, or they can do either. And we've built the format for our teacher programs based on our very successful model for engineering as elementary. And we've had a lot of data from the engineering as elementary program as it rolls out that's taught us a lot about what works for teachers, and not just teachers in small groups. We're talking about whole school engagement, which enables school leaders to really support the rollout of a cybersecurity program in all areas of the curriculum and for all teachers who might benefit from that in their school. There's a couple of domains we're sort of thinking that we'd like to see teachers come away with. So yes, it is about skills. It's also about techniques. It's helping them to think. It's helping them to learn and to increase their understanding and to then apply that to how to get a better outcome for their students. So there's a fair bit of unpacking of different parts of the curriculum and giving them the confidence to experiment with new modes of program delivery. And just very briefly, the last two streams that I touched on include family engagement and industry engagement. So in the family engagement stream, we're currently working on additional resources to help support the other work that's happening with young people and teachers. Families will be a key focus in the first tranche. And the first initiative you'll see coming through is a role-playing game designed to introduce cybersecurity concepts in a fun and engaging manner. And you can play this game at school or with family members and friends at home. And we're hoping that those kind of activities will help to normalise cybersecurity concepts in a family conversation, in the broader social experience. We're trying to excite people about maybe stepping up together to solve cybersecurity challenges and practice their skills at home and have a conversation together. So we'll be also, looking for your input over the coming months. And the industry engagement stream is really critical to us. We will be rolling out a number of discussions. You'll see Anna reaching out and telling you when those things are going to be happening. And we see opportunities to have conversations with different industry groups and organisations, really to exchange information, gain insight, and as I said, to further explore barriers and opportunities. We'll be coming up soon, planning a conversation about the pain points that teachers experience. And we're hoping that all of you who are working with teachers are able to participate in some of those. And so finally in our stream, we've got a Minds in Residence program that is aimed at bringing together relevant Australian and international entities. We're open to your suggestions for highly creative thinkers from across many different disciplines who may have something unique to contribute to the design of the program, who might be good candidates to work with Questacon in creative and practical ways. So again, you'll hear from the team about opportunities to get on board and maybe do some more deep dive work with Questacon. We're building a strong evaluation framework that wraps around all of this. And the framework is currently going through final development. It links through to Questacon's ongoing and very comprehensive evaluation and monitoring framework for all of our national programs. The idea here is that we'll be continuing to iterate using those design-centered principles, and we'll be looking at the feedback as it comes in session by session from the students and teachers who are participating. One of the great things about the framework we have is that although it takes a fair degree of time and a high degree of rigour, we are currently going through an ethics approval process for Questacon's evaluation and data. And what that means is that in future, we should be able to share a lot of the outcomes from the program with you. And that's, I think, going to be really helpful when it comes to understanding how initiatives like this are going to be contributing and what they're actually achieving. That will tell us a lot about what we should continue, what we should change, or if necessary, what we can stop doing. So I just wanted to finish there and just say thank you very much for the opportunity to brief you about this. That's just been a brief introduction. If you'd like to know any more about it, you can see here on screen the Cyber Ready mailbox is there. You can get in touch with us anytime, and our website has got a whole lot more information about these different program elements at the moment. So I'll stop talking now and go back to Anna, who will handle any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Bobby. That was a really great overview, and I think you've really done justice to the many facets of our program and of what we're trying to achieve. And we were mindful of time. It's been quite a short session for everything that we had to cover. And now we've got about 10 minutes for questions. So I may take some of these, but I actually think some of these would be great for you to answer. The first one is around how did we choose Central Queensland, Tasmania and the Northern Territory as the regions to focus on?
Sure. So in brief, we, as I said, Questacon's worked across so many different parts of Australia over the years, and we're very connected into existing networks that do similar work to us, I suppose, in STEM engagement. The usual suspects for that would be museums and science centres. But increasingly, as we have been looking at how an organisation like Questacon does its work, we see two things. The first thing we see is we can't be all things to all people. It is impossible, even with an unlimited budget, to get programs to reach absolutely everybody. We have to be dexterous and we have to be diverse in the approaches that we use. And in trying then to determine where might we make a deeper impact, we can't make a deeper impact absolutely everywhere, but we can start to explore whether a deeper impact is possible by leveraging more of the local ecosystem. And what we knew from our previous work is that there is a lot of existing STEM engagement work happening in these three particular regions. That's Central Queensland, Tasmania, and the Northern Territory. We're seeing a huge array of different types of organisations in those areas getting involved. Organisations like libraries, which have strong community visibility and opportunities for participation. And so what we are now doing is trialling more in-depth long-term relationship-based approaches so that when Questacon visits an area, it is done not with us just bringing the program in, delivering it and leaving, but with the full intention that we are going to be in a multi-year relationship with these organisations and that we will plan out over multiple years to have a more, I suppose, a deeper presence that's more flexible and that allows other organisations to play a role with us and for them to leverage the Commonwealth presence, which is where we come in, and for us to leverage their local knowledge and expertise. And this is very consistent with what's called place-based approaches that are being developed right across many states at the moment that really acknowledge the unique and particular strengths of regions, the existing resources of regions, and where regions themselves are planning to go. So, you know, if we look to the future, we would see that cybersecurity job opportunities are going to be radically different in their geographical distribution. And we would like to see that geographic distribution being reflected in the way Questacon delivers its programs. I hope that's answered the question.
I certainly think it did. Thank you so much for that, Bobby. The next one is around the best way for industry to engage at this point, but I actually think you've covered it and mentioned that with the Leaders Forum that we've got starting up, which I lead. We'll be reaching out to a number of industry stakeholders ourselves. However, I guess if you did want to reach out to our email address to learn more about our program or to just have a chat and to make yourself into a cyber friend of the program, we would really, really love to hear from you. So we're building a bit of a network that we plan on calling on whenever we do have events, but also if people are interested and suitable to have a look at some of the work we're doing in our program. So Bobby mentioned the Minds in Residence. It doesn't have to be something quite as extensive as that, but there might be areas that you as an industry expert are very good at or interested in that may really align with a piece of content we're developing, and we would just love to know that you're out there and you're willing to volunteer your time with us. So let's have a look. About how to get involved and the best way to contact us. Okay, so Bobby mentioned our website. So if you just go to Questacon or if you type Questacon Cyber Ready Program, our page will pop up and all our details are there. But otherwise, our email is cyberready@questacon.edu.au. We've got a question about tertiary students and young females in STEM. So Eloise says if you have time, she would love to hear about a small overview about the future of the program involving the tertiary students and our plans for, I guess, diversity more broadly. I think it's a two-part question. Did you want to attempt that, Bobby, please?
Look, I will, but I'll take the easier question or the shorter question first. Mona has posted a question about something being planned for 2022 Internet Safety Day. Now, just so you know, Questacon is a regular supporter of different days, weeks, months and years of. I'm not sure we had 2022 Internet Safety Day on our list. We will look that up and we will think about what we will do for that, because from my point of view, it's a really great topic that we can build into the communication and the planning for events, both at Questacon and in terms of our social media presence. So thank you for that question. Going back to Eloise, there's two dimensions there, tertiary students. I'll start with that one. You may be familiar with our Questacon Science Circus program, which actually works closely with the Australian National University and and students in their Masters of Science Communication program, those students participate in fieldwork through Questacon and they travel with our programs. So the skills transfer there is both about them learning how to communicate around STEM, but also developing the practical skills of how to, when they're communicating about their future work, how to place that in a context that works for an audience. In the Cyber Ready program, you could see there would be opportunities for similar levels of engagement where people who are studying cybersecurity or related fields could join our program as volunteers and could actually be associated with the delivery. We certainly would like to see students who are at regional university campuses having an opportunity to join us when we are out on the road. It gives them a chance to be exposed to other cybersecurity young professionals. And also we hope to participate in some of the same skills building that teachers and educators in the program might participate in. We are going to be looking within the next 18 months as we look to the teacher professional development programs. I didn't mention it much, but there is a component of teacher pre-service training. So these are teachers who are already at university, they're studying, but they're not yet qualified as educators. We'll be looking to work with tertiary level educators to give them an early start in terms of those skills. How are we going for time, Anna? 3 more minutes? Okay, I'll keep going.
Sorry, I had to mute myself. There was a problem with the microphone while you spoke, so I had to mute myself. But yes, we do have about 3 minutes left. So I feel like you've answered a little bit about the tertiary piece. Perhaps if you could give us a few words on our diversity and inclusivity plan and thoughts and moving forward.
Absolutely. I would also just briefly say that for tertiary students, you know, that we know that they're working across, they're studying in many different fields. We also know that almost all of those fields are going to be needing people with cybersecurity skills. So there's an opportunity to get them involved in some things like the design challenge that are about systems thinking skills that they might not be working in their current course, but they can start to develop as an addition to help them be cyber employable. So going on to the diversity and inclusion piece, the team's been doing a lot of work at the moment on this. One of the key requirements or the challenges we've set ourselves has been, how do we make sure that gender representation in the program is very good and very strong? Second thing is, how do we make sure that when we are designing experiences that are for girls, particularly, but also that include girls as a part of the audience, that we are very conscious of the kind of barriers, and particularly when it comes to gender stereotypes and the way young girls see themselves. We know that there's particularly strong senses of what isn't possible for young girls and young women that do kick in extremely early. So it requires a lot of care to be taken in the program design. It requires every presenter who is working on the program to be well trained and very conscious of the unconscious bias that they might be bringing into the way they present, the kind of language they use, the tones of communication they use. Fortunately, Questacon teams have been working really hard on these kind of issues. We've been working a lot with adolescents, as I said, in the skills and technology confidence side of things. That has given us a lot of insight, I suppose, and learning from the front line of working with young women, and that has given us a gradual improvement profile. We continue to improve, we continue to invest and think really hard about how we as an organisation continue to get better at that. You know, it's a really difficult thing when you come from a traditional science centre and museum environment. When we did an audit of gender representation at Questacon last year, we looked at every single experience that was on our floor, and probably unsurprisingly, but still really shockingly, we found that our gender representation on the floor was not good enough. And so we take that approach, which is as good as we think it might be, we must always be aware of the fact it's probably still not good enough, and we've got to keep trying. I'll pause there, Anna. I can see we're out of time.
Thank you so much, Bobby. Just before I let everybody go, I was just going to say a couple of words about our upcoming events. So we're hoping to partake at ASA's CyberCon in a few weeks' time, and hope to see you all there. And that's it from us for now. But thank you, Bobby, once again for taking us through that and for all the questions you have answered. Thank you, Stephen, for answering the rest of them in chat. If there are some we've missed, please do reach out via email anytime. Thank you to AusCyber for having us on, and enjoy the rest of Cyber Week, everybody, and happy Friday. All the best. Bye.
Thanks all.